Okay, Wendy Dingman.
Dingman. Wendy Tang Dingman.
Wendy Tang Dingman. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
I want to start by just having a conversation. I think we had a couple conversations with you and I. There was very, very open and direct and organic, which I appreciated. Which you taught me a few things in your story, and this is your story is about when the audience is listening to this, is they're going to find out that everybody's going to have a past, but it's what you do with that past to propel yourself into a wonderful future. And I think you have a really good story, but I want to start just quickly, just tell everybody what you do as a professional, and then maybe take us back to the Wendy in the past, just a little bit of a glimpse of that story that can help other people when they listen to it. So again, the floor is yours. Let's, it's all you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So I'll try my best to flow through in an organic way. Feel free to interrupt me. And I really enjoy that feedback and redirect. So currently, I am the CEO of Sino Canada. In a couple sentences, if I had to summarize, we are essentially the broker that stands between Canadian institutions and government bodies and the Chinese institutions and government bodies. And what we broker is healthcare education. So we create opportunities. I create programs. So it's kind of like there's a need out of China. They come to me. I figure out who's the right partner. I find the right partner. I develop and map the program. And then we start offering it in China. And we've been very fortunate to adapt the virtual way, which is called synchronously teaching online for nursing programs in 2018, so right before the pandemic. So we've actually developed very well. We've survived, and we've actually conquered the market in that sense. I am also the co-founder of Chrysalis Institute, which is a nonprofit. We're a social enterprise focused on giving back to the community with a new type of model surrounding charities and the way that we function within our own community to provide services. It's really about alleviating the wait time. It's about brokering, leveraging relationships, and we've done a lot in the past 3 months with zero funding, which I'm super proud of, but we can dive into that a little bit later on. So me, personally, I grew up in Niagara Falls, originally from China. I think in our previous conversations, we talked about my childhood and all the things that really encompass who I am as a person. I won't go in that many details today because I think we had a very emotional and vulnerable conversation. But my childhood, I think, like any successful person, is full of trauma and success in overcoming barriers. So when I was much younger, I had experienced physical abuse up until the age of 17 with people that I trusted, as well as sexual abuse at a very young age. With that, it skewers your view on the world. I left home at 17 and I ended up in the streets. And I was, top, I would like to say, top 1% of my class. I was getting 90s up until grade 11. I took calculus in summer school in advance. That was, traditionally Asian mentality and overachieving. And I just crashed. Everything caught up with me in grade 12. And I got into the wrong crowds. Once I left home, it was kind of a taste of freedom that I never had. So it's very easy to be misguided, taken advantage of, and groomed by someone much older. So that did happen to me. And there was, indulgence in things that definitely expedited that. I came super close to being trafficked. I only realized recently. And I had faced, physical adversity. I had a stroke that left me brain damaged. I had, eye surgery that left me with issues in my eye where I thought I would never see. So all these things during that time made Wendy a very vulnerable, a very victimized mindset person. By grace of, higher above, I found my way and started getting educated. I was open to that, and I saw all these happy faces, and that really pulled me out of there for a while. But I didn't seek any medical help. I thought, therapies and things like that were beyond me, and it wouldn't work. And in 2016, I think that was the pivotal point we talk about.
Right.
That pivotal point, even though Wendy has gotten back on the horse, was, ended up in a DUI, which technically now looking back, they consider it almost a suicide attempt with the amount that I was drinking, and I was purposely ramming my car into the guardrail. So thank you to the officer that took me in, because if you didn't, I don't know where I would be today. And I needed that. And it doesn't seem like a gift at the time, but it is. And then a week later, I was in the hospital. My husband had found me in the shower. And so I got help after that with the support of him and his mother and my family. And it really reshaped me. And that's when things really started to change, is accepting the opportunity, seeing the opportunity as it is. And sometimes when we're in that mindset, we sit in it so long that we're waiting for people to come physically pick you up and bring you back on the path, so that we miss out on all these hands that are extended because we have to go that extra 50% and said, no, it's too hard. That was my mindset. That was my folly. And so that was the most important moment in my life. And I cannot take anything for granted from that point, because if I look at it, and I think we even talked about it, is what am I grateful for? And I saw it as a million reasons for me to not be here, to not be proactive, for me to give up. And for some reason, and we spoke about, I'm not religious anyway, but for some reason, I made it. A million reasons. And I just needed one. So I started working really, really hard for the traditional things. What defines success? I had it ingrained into me, you have to go to Harvard. You have to be a doctor. You have to drive a nice car. You have to make lots of money. You have to know everything so that when people speak to you, they see authority. And that really skewed me a little bit for a while. I did it. I made myself successful. I got educated. I continue to be educated. And for years, I did that, set goal. I'm going to be director at this age. I'm going to be CEO by 30. I met every one of those goals. But I noticed that I was still unhappy. There wasn't that fulfillment that I thought was going to intrinsically show up. And I see like the beautiful smile on your face because you have joy. And, and I struggle with that for a long time until this year. After the pandemic lifted, when I started my nonprofit, I am working for free full time. But let me tell you, it's been the happiest. I wake up every day and I think I talk about that at 4 a.m. and I work till 11 nonstop. And it's just, it's the happiest. Right. And I'll stop there.
No. Yeah. This is amazing. This is a lot of profound things were said just now. And for the listeners that are behind this show, they're going to take this back and self-reflect, and you're going to help a lot of people. And so thanks so much for being so open, transparent, and brave. Very brave. Victimization. Is it healthy in your mind to self-aware as a victim, but use that victim, emotions that you go through and channel that into productivity, being functional, being someone that's accomplishing? Is that one? Do they go side by side, one on one another? Is there a balance between? Because a lot of people talk about victimization and they talk down about victimization. Victimization, I believe, is when you are, realizing the honest truth. I think, and not not just kicking it to the side. So I just wanted to ask your perception of that, and how do you interpret it?
Absolutely. And I think this is a point that I really enjoy the conversation around it, because there's no right or wrong answer. And I'm starting to realize that we view things as very black and white. And I'll explain. Victimization, I think you even spoken up and you said, no, let's not talk down, because that's you have a right to feel the way that you do, because you are a victim of terrible things. So there is, we can't say that here's the line, and when you go beyond that line, now you're just inside your own head, right? And I think that is the explanation that we have to think about sometimes. When we talk about victimization, I'm a victim. I have every right to feel like a victim. And then society also has this other aspect where if you stick in that little niche area in your mind too long, then it becomes boo-hoo me, right? Who sets that bar? What's right and wrong? Who gets to judge your internal monologue that goes on every day? For a lot of victims or survivors, they go through that battle every day. And I'm still working on my self-esteem. I'm working on all these things. There are days I wake up and it's that little voice that's like, because of this, you're not good enough, right? And it's not intentionally. I'm not saying boo-hoo me, but that in itself is a facet of victimization, right? So it's our internal judgments that really hold any weight. So for any victims or survivors, they get to decide what is too much and too little. We can only be responsible for ourselves. The society, they can have their opinion. So I say victimization without any inflection of wrong or right, just as is.
I love that so much. Yeah. And I think that when people, accept that, and I think they're going to get a little bit further, because, to me, yeah, if you're, self-aware as a victim and you're not functioning, you're not striving to get better, then maybe we're going to have a conversation. But if you're doing that and you're going for it, but you're not in denial, then I think that's very healthy.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for taking us back there. I think that's a wonderful story. And now into the now. I know you recently went to Boston like 2 days ago. I was like, oh my, is Wendy gonna make the show? What's going on?
You messaged me so fast after that post.
Yeah, because I wanted the story. I want people to listen to the story, because I didn't, I probably have to reschedule. I had to reschedule, but I was looking forward to it. But then you dipped for like 2 days to Boston, and then all of a sudden you're here. So just take us back. What are you doing now? I know you're a leadership coach. If you can just talk about a little bit of that, because I think the coaching space is a big industry. Every leader needs that, that sounding board. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're trying to do with that? And perhaps maybe it's just propping your own skills. But I'm curious to learn.
I did go to this training in Boston. So I flew Tuesday to Boston, then ended up in Harvard. Yeah. As you know, I know you're trying to dig that out of me. There you go, family, Harvard. I made a text to my cousins and I said, I'm bringing honor to our family. Ha ha ha, No reply, dead silence. And
I wonder why.
And so it was an amazing opportunity. Yeah. I was there for the continuing ed, professional development. They have these great programs where you can go in for 2-day and longer training, where you can build to a more prestigious, certificate in leadership leadership excellence. Yeah. So when I went and I booked this, it was really about self-development. And I wondered for myself as a leader, some of the concept that they were willing to discuss in those classes, let me tell you, it was riveting. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., I felt like, everything I was listening to had immediately impact in my mindset. Do you know how crazy that feeling is? And being surrounded, my class was
That's exciting.
It's super exciting. And please interrupt me and
No,
ask questions. And being, I'm sitting next to people that are like CEOs from Google, from the federal government of USA. People were there from Brazil, Senate from Brazil. I met an amazing Ukrainian woman that owned Montessori schools, and that was working with people out of Kiev for war relief.
Wow.
So it was mind-boggling. And every person was talking about conflicts. They were so open, and they said, I have anxiety when I deal with my team. These are multi-billion-dollar industry managers or CEOs, and some were the head of athletic departments at Harvard. He was one of my favorite. So when they spoke, I literally just ate it up. Everything they were saying had direct impact on how I move forward as a leader. And with that leadership coaching and what we talked about during those 2 days, it really shapes how I'm going to deliver that. And with me, I even spoke to the professors, Madeline and Claire Flynn, and I said, I really want a strong mental health component utilizing what really afflicts me and in leadership. I've met leaders that have autism. I have met leaders that are bipolar. I have met leaders that are ADHD. I've had leaders that have overcome things and they have PTSD. And that really affects their leadership style. And you have to work that extra step. So I really want to bring that in. And as far as I know, knock on wood, I don't see anybody doing that as of yet.
No.
Yeah.
And that's very important. It's very important. That inclusivity is very important. Speaking in leadership, I wanted to ask you, was there something that you've learned through this course, and it's ongoing, obviously, of dealing with crisis? Because I think a lot of that anxiety level, and everybody's looking at that leader, that CEO, and they're thinking, oh man, grass is greener on the other side. Man, they're probably treading water underneath. They're in a lot of pressure, and in a lot of ways, and when crises come to the organization, whoever they're leading, is there a standard operation procedure, let's say, that's kind of like something you can go to when it comes to dealing with crisis as a leader?
Oh, you're really making me use my brain. So I will only speak to what I know of and what I apply myself. My team calls me, they say I have a superpower. So I've been working in the capacity of CNO Canada in a management capacity, and working between China and Canada since probably like 8 years ago. It's constant crisis, as you can imagine. Two different cultures, two different work ethic. In China, everything moves so fast. It's just bang, 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 bang. And you have to be available all the time. So I used to have mental health breakdowns because you can't operate at such a high stress level. Imagine 20-something operating at that level. I was talking to, potentially head of states. I met the ambassador in Indonesia, in China, multiple times at a young age with high functioning anxiety and undiagnosed ADHD, before I got Adderall. Yeah. But my team called it a superpower, right? Because they were like, I was really good at operating 10 things at once. But if you got me to sit down and try to teach someone how to do that, they frazzle out. And it was extremely stressful for the staff that worked underneath me. So as a leader, I think the biggest takeaway from what I gather in my own experience at Harvard and my own lived, solution that I've come up with during the 8 years, I'm going to have to build people for this, is that no problem needs to be dealt immediately. And what I mean by that is that the Asian style of work is there's a problem, and then you're just hammering yourself and your team to solve it. Just fix it. We call it fix it. And I learned this from Claire Flynn at Harvard. She calls it the fix it mentality. You have a problem, you got to fix it. So Because the manager, you don't want to think about it. You just want your team to do it. So your team goes and fix it and then pops up again and again and again and again. And why? That's the question. Because we get so trapped in solving things that we don't realize that, hey, you know what? Take a step back, breathe, have that 4-hour meeting. Say, what are we fixing actually? Is it a person? Is it a task? Is it a policy? Is it something that is mental? Is it something that is physical? That it's reoccurring? You might be surprised at what you find, right? And me, I used to be very quick to anger. You know, I'm very responsive. I call that fight or flight, and it's amazing survival tool for survivors, but it eats into your daily life, and people that work with you or even personal relationships can't handle it because it's so high stress. Because immediately anything that gets your blood flowing, you're like, and then you're like, let's fix it now so I don't have to deal with it. And I think that's true of many leaders, is that we encounter difficult, complex situations.
100%.
Right?
That is 100%.
So that's don't fix it. Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
You know, if I know that client or that, you know, that contract or whatever it is, do not feel the pressure of the world. And just remember, keep it outside of your body. As somebody that currently works, which maybe is I hope my therapist is hearing this. Yes, it's a terrible coping strategy, but I'm making it work, so don't judge me.
No judgment here. No judgment.
16 to 20 hours are my work days. I have 3 businesses currently functioning. I have another startup in China as well. So working, I'm constantly toggling through. Another thing is, I just learned this year, putting that stress outside of your body. Right. It's easier said than done. You do that big deep breath thing and you're like, okay, it's just work. It doesn't have effect, but we take it home. And that changes. I would be argumentative. I would be explosive. And then when things are not good at home, that's your foundation. These are the people that you love. And now your work has ate away at your personal relationship, your wife, your husband, your children, and they are the fallout, not you.
And these are the things that break down marriages and families, and it all stems in. It's like some fields, especially high stress fields, like our law enforcement, our firefighters, and that go through. And one thing that you mentioned here that I think people need to accept and really adopt is, and I think I'm going to do it too, is therapy. Seriously.
Yes.
You need to talk to people.
Yes. You need to talk to people that are not intrinsically invested in your life.
That's right.
Because we burn friends out. Yeah. We burn parents out. We
Spouses, family members, friends.
I've done it. Yeah. I'm guilty of it. Right? And I'm so lucky at the group of people that have survived my trauma with me. Because you don't realize, just because you're hurt and you're healing, you don't realize the damage that you cause while you heal or before you heal, and the demand that you make of every single person you come in contact with. And I think what I really love about what you said is the manifestation. And negative mindset will cause that. But before I went into my surgery, I felt like something was going to happen. Something happened every single time because I was like, no, this, and it really eats away. And now my mindset has completely changed. And let me tell you, in 3 months, I did what people thought was impossible. And not because of my own effort, but because people came into my life that led me to others that I needed because of that positivity. And it changes what you say, changes I'm telling you, I have 2 pictures 3 months apart of me trapped in my body and me now. And you would think you were talking to someone completely different. And that negativity eats away at your soul and your body.
100%.
Right?
100%. There are folks out there that, will question how positive you are. Is that genuine?
Yeah.
I have a hard time with those people, to be honest. I really do. Because what's the alternative? You want me to be negative?
Yeah.
I've done that. Yeah. I've been there. it won't send you anywhere. It won't take you anywhere until it's not going to help.
No.
So, I think it's important to stay, stay real. I mean, be realistic, but do it positive. Do it in a positive motivation while doing it. So cognitively, like, you have now taken the steps to seek therapy and everything else, and many other leaders are doing the same. And you're saying it has helped you. How does someone take the first step to seeking that help?
Wow, that's a great question. I can't sit here and tell you that it was super easy, because it took me, let's see, until 20 something odd years to make that choice. And just despite that, I have a nursing background. I know all the hallmarks, and I preach that in the job that I am in. And yet it took me so long. And I've only been in actual therapy for 4 years out of those many years. It comes out easy, mental health and all that stuff. The first step is understanding that there's nothing that can be worse than what you're going through right now. And the fear of sharing that is okay. I was very afraid, and you got to take that step, because therapy doesn't mean that you're bad. Therapy doesn't mean that, there's something wrong with you.
Or weak.
Or weak. And I think that's a big one. It's weak. Therapy and having to go to therapy doesn't mean that, you are not successful and that you have failed. And I think it's that concept. Yeah. You failed. And it's the easiest thing is you fail being a functioning human being. And that's the underlining. Is that other people can function without therapy, and there I am needing this therapy, that it makes me less. And for someone who's already feeling like the world's against them, and I talk about that victimization, right? Yeah. Where every time something bad happened, I would be like, why is this happening to me again? Right? So it's hard for you to take that first step, because then you're like, oh my God, I'm being the victim again because I have to go. Take that first step. Leap of faith. Even if you go and twiddle your thumb for an hour, by all means, you'd be surprised. And when I finally decided to go, it was like word vomit. It just all came pouring out. And if you do not go, and I recommend everybody go, because we're not perfect. When you do go, let me make this analogy. You have a trash can or a trash bag. We've all done it. I don't want to carry 2 bags out, so I'm going to stuff it inside the other one. I keep throwing it and I keep crushing it down, and I keep just packing it in, and it's good for a while, and then it explodes and leaks everywhere. Right. So that's your brain, that's your heart, that's your soul, and it comes out in different ways. And you think about which you want to have a negative or hurtful impact on anybody you love, anybody you come in contact with, because mental health is not a single unit thing. It's not just about you feeling bad, because when I feel bad, people around me also starts feeling bad.
100%.
Right? And I start hurting them by the way I behave, whether it's hurting myself or it's in the negativity that I speak. My outlooks change. I'm in meetings. The people don't feel energized. They feel thrown down. We're energetic beings.
100%. 100%.
Right?
I believe in that. And a lot of that, we wonder some of the, when you're thinking negative and a lot of negative things start happening, like if you're aware, you can see. If you change your tone a little bit and things look a lot better inside. Yes. I want you to talk about some of the stuff that you're doing now, women in leadership. I think it's important we get that out too. And if you can just speak on your organizations now that you're running, the companies that you're running, and as also women in leadership, because I think that we touched on that when we spoke.
Yeah. When we talk about women in leadership, I would really like to stress this one point, and it's something that really helped guide me. I was lucky enough to meet women in leadership, And if I did not meet these two people, these three people actually, but two is my focus right now. One is Lisa Gong, who gave me a chance to be part of something in my darkest moments. And she said, Wendy, do you want to fly out on $500 a month salary in China?
That wasn't bad. Yes. I think it was just before 2016, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she gave me that chance, and that helped open my eyes to something bigger. And it made me hungry. It made me hungry for success. And it made me, it was what I needed for that moment. It wasn't as wholesome as I would like to make it believe, but it was a necessary journey, because I understood from her, I've never had really a role model that was Chinese or a woman growing up. And she showed me that the power that she could wield as a woman dominating the nonprofit sector in healthcare underneath the Chinese government for years, for over 20 years. And it was so impactful. And then there was Tina Bax, whom I met working, and she just won, Business Hall of Fame. And when I speak about her, I look up to her with such admiration. And I told her, I said, I hope at one point I can receive the same award and you could attend. And they've been intrinsic in my style of leadership and who I want to become. So I think for me, I am by no means a feminist. I went in there bare-boned, and it was hard because, one, I'm extremely young. I'm dealing with people that are usually twice my age. I made CEO at 30. I was very cocky. If you met me then, you might not like me. And I felt like I needed this bravado, right? And it was a cultural too, because I was dealing with Chinese leaders as well, a lot of high academic people. And when you know about academia, their vocabulary, their terminology, well, I've seen them at parties. I've seen them at parties in the infinity pool. So I no longer think that high, but, looking at PhDs at conferences, but just wow. And they gave me, I felt so small. And then I started realizing I got to stop tearing myself down.
That's right.
And I think I do that sometimes. And you even say it to me too. Yeah. I'm working on it. Yeah. And I think it's because women, and especially if you come from a background similar to me, you already feel less than what you are. And I start thinking, I apologize for this, or I apologize for that, or start questioning my decisions because I'm young and I'm not as high of from a high education background, right? And then you start talking lower, and it's a vibe, it's an energy, and people then zone in and they put you further down. So why are you taking away your step ladders, right? Why are you making yourself short? Why are you making yourself less? F them. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I totally resonate with that. And you want to be quieter in the room when you really don't need to be. Yeah. You want to be able to get that acceptance, or just you kind of drive away from who you really are just to get along. Mm-hmm. But then it starts chipping at you, and as human beings, and when we interact with human beings, we all know that some people take advantage of that.
They do.
Right?
They do. Yeah. They absolutely do. Yeah. And let me tell you, when you're in leadership, and I am by no means a psychologist or have authority to speak about this, but just from my observation, when you're in leadership, you're in a pool which is highly likely that you're going to encounter narcissistic people. And let me tell you, I have a victim stamp on my forehead like no tomorrow until I started building boundaries and recognizing. And they just zone in. They're almost like vampires. They can smell the blood in the water.
If you're listen to this very carefully. Yeah. Keep going.
And throughout my career, I've always tried to overcompensate. You try to please everyone. And yet again, that's that victim mentality, because you don't think you're enough. And what anybody says to you is intrinsically true. And any judgment, I'm telling you, I've been told I'm loud. I've been sitting across from a potential business partner and, having other females around me, and they will directly say to other females and compliment them for being quiet and beautiful. Oh my God. They don't, I wasn't born yesterday and I'm stronger now. Yeah. But in that past, they talk down to you. And you can think about it now and go, well, if you don't like me, if you don't like what I have to say, and you don't like how loud I am, there's the effing door. Mm-hmm. And I ran into that wall over and over again until I learned to pick myself up and build healthy boundaries. And that's where the victimization stops. Because it's about, we have a right to say how you treat me. And if you don't want to treat me that way, with respect, and understand me as a person, then why should I give you all this leeway?
100%.
And we are so used to smiling and being courteous while they're taking out their hidden daggers and making multiple jabs. You walk away like your soul has been sucked out. Their voice reverberate in your brain. I've cried in my car before, and they can sense it. And that's why we say people that have overcome things have a target, because they can read your energy. And what are they? But energy vampires. Mm-hmm. And they want that because they know that, right?
Energy vampires.
Yeah.
Whew. That's good right there.
Yeah.
So your ability to be an emotional, like your emotional intelligence quite high, right? Is that from, is that natural? Is that natural, or is that because you went through so many emotional traumas and ordeals?
Would you believe me if I told you as a kid, I was super quiet. I was very introverted.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. I used to write fan fictions, in my basement for fun because I didn't have any social skills.
Right.
Coming out of, those traumatic experience made me very awkward. Mm-hmm. I was a people pleaser. I had, paranoia about my friends, even in high school, because you don't trust people, but you want their affection. How confusing is that as a kid, right? I got picked on because I am weird, and kids don't know any better. Yeah. It's definitely developed, and I don't know how it happened. It wasn't over a single moment. It wasn't over a single thing, but it came.
Yeah. And that's, in my opinion, I think that's one of the biggest skills to have right now in today's society when it comes to business, leadership, is your emotional intelligence. I truly believe that. Because we're now in a stage where, it's not just about the product that we're selling. It's not just about the thing that we're pushing or whatever. It's about people and in relationships. And if you can't read the room, you can't read who you're dealing with and things like that, and generally being open to learning, then you're not going to do well. It's just going to be temporary. So you have one set of skills there to push that. Now, I wanted just to quickly go back to leadership, because with leadership, I find sometimes that, everybody wants to be a leader, but one thing that they don't understand with leadership also means you need to serve. Why are so many leaders, in my opinion, and we can pick who in general, I mean, it could be business, it could be politics. We don't want to get into it. We don't want to get into it. But why do they not want to be that servant leader? Like, what is it? Is it just they're lazy, or is it just too much emotional baggage to take on?
That's a good question. Well, here is almost like a reverse question to think about, and even for the listeners at home, is what is your version of what a leader is? If you ask that in a room full of people, every person will have a different opinion.
That's a good point.
But if you ask a room full of leaders, you might hear people say, and I ask this question, I have it built into my curriculum, it's about what kind of leader are you? And if I ask your employee, what are they going to say? And what you'll find, right? And I want them to reflect, be serious, be vulnerable, right? And of course, like there's that intrinsic, I will keep my, like, I'm not going to say anything. But what you'll find is most people, like you described, has a dictator style leadership. What we call that is power is everything. Because I am in a positional power, I speak from authority that comes from education. I speak from authority that comes from my academic experience. I speak from authority because I'm my seniority. You will find that they think that they're very direct at delegating. Their employees, not so much. And what are you going to see in those companies? And there is literature on this I can share with you. And these statistics we talked a lot about while I was at Harvard as well, is that when you see those type of leadership dynamics, you're going to have probably, don't quote the exact number, but around 50% higher turnover rates, right?
Oh, wow.
You're going to see, higher up, I think it was 76% more sick days being called in.
Hit them up. Because when you show them those statistics, they're going to start serving right quick, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah.
So my style of leadership is servant style, or in service to, right? Because it's a supportive leadership. So that means I'm one of the team. My team needs me to do a chart. I do it for them, right? And anything they need, mental health wise, they talk to me. You have to create that dynamic of trust. And I get leaders all the time that says, why should we do that? They can go to a counselor. Or why should I worry about you after you leave? What happens outside makes no difference to me because you're here to work. I only know you as work, Brooke. I don't need the home version. And that's your life. Why should I effing care? I've heard that from leaders.
Because they spend more time in some cases at the office or with your business.
Yes.
You want these employees to feel like it's their own. And if it's if they're spending X amount, we gotta worry about just outside the office. I feel like, and I had Rob Berta from Paradigm Fleet who's on the podcast, was explaining, he goes that extra mile to have that second conversation. Hey, is everything good, man?
Yeah.
Is everything okay?
Yeah.
And then, there's folks that take advantage of that as well.
Of course.
So,
of course.
How do you deal with those people?
So you're always going to have takers and you're always going to have givers. That's
a Dr. Phil book, I think. Yeah.
Well, my therapist calls me all or nothing. So that it's the all or nothing mentality is that I either give too much or I give too little. So you have to have the medium, and many people do that. That's one of my follies, one of the two working on for Wendy as well. Okay. Is where's that standardization? What is that bar I'm hitting where, I can feel that, you're taking too much, you're taking advantage. Let me ask you this, turn around and quiz you.
Okay.
Would you rather give too much and care too much and support too much and have one or two people take advantage? Or would you rather give too little and have one good person slip through your finger?
No, one or two people, because I on a masses level, on a volume basis, I can accomplish more.
Yes.
I don't care that I got to hustle for one or two.
Yep.
Well, good question.
That is right there is the answer, is that I think people want to be intrinsically good. They want to be good at their job. They want to be emotionally invested in your business. And a lot of people tell me that. They said, how do you make people follow you?
Right.
And I say, because I follow them. I give them the opportunity to sit at par with me. All my team, we're a team. I never speak from my position. I ask simple things, thank you, please. I see leaders go, hey, did you do this?
Right.
Or I had one situation which a friend mentioned to me, and I gave her some coaching, where a woman was coming in late all the time. You have that one coworker, right?
Yeah.
And the boss would constantly.
That's me. No, go ahead.
And the boss would constantly be like, okay, you know what? We need to, let her go. And I said, have you talked to her?
Perfect.
Have you? Yeah. Do you know what's going on in her life? Why should I care? That's what they say. Why should I care? And I say, because you do not want this to be a corner store where people come in and leave every other second.
Yeah.
How are you going to build that rapport and trust? And when they did sit down with that woman,
Well, can I just push back a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, in some cases, though, the idea with that pushback would be, well, I pay them.
Okay.
I pay them, Wendy. Come on now.
You're not going to like what I'm going to say next.
Hit me.
I used to think like that, coming from a very strict background.
Yeah.
That's the mentality, dictatorship. I speak, you listen.
Yeah.
I want you to do something, you don't do something else. We are all human. What you're talking about is you're asking for a sheep. You're trying to train a dog to respond. That dog doesn't question you, That's a person. That is a person. And they have every right to go to another business. And let me tell you, they will find another job. But are you going to find other staff that is as good as them? Right? And if they're not a good, and I know what you're saying, if they're not good at their job, then by all means, give them the evaluation. And if they're not improving and they're late, by all means, you can absolutely choose to dismiss them. But I see too many good people in a situation that I came across in my own journey. I had a good worker, and all of a sudden it was like she was malfunctioning, right? Any other leader, and I get told this, would have been like, pulled her in, criticized her, and I almost did. Thank God I practiced mindfulness. You stop and you think about it, and if you still think the same in a couple hours, then do it. Right. Don't be instinctual. That fix-it mentality, I got to do it now. So I had a feeling something was going on mental health-wise. I followed that feeling. I left her alone. I backed off a little bit. And I carried a little bit more of her workload. She was extremely good worker, bright, on track for management. And finally, she was willing to talk to me. And she started crying in the meeting. Her mental health is no good. She wants to go into part-time, possibly. And she was so scared from lived experience that I was going to make her feel even worse. That dread, right? When your heart starts pumping, scenarios start going on in your head. And she was already in a terrible place. And she was telling me, I don't want to put this weight on you. She's still considerate of the company. And I say, you are only responsible for yourself. You owe me nothing. Okay? You've given your all. And I know that from your work ethic. And she says, I've been failing the past a month. I haven't been answering you. I'm making mistakes. And I was like, that's because you're burnt out. Or you have something going on inside. And she said, I need to back out for a bit. I hope you're not mad. No, I'm not mad. Do we have a right, just because we pay someone, to judge them on the decisions that they make? Of course we want to make money. Of course we want to have high capacity and high functionality and profit. Of course we want all these things. But will you step on someone else to go get it? That's my question for you.
Well, I would say, if a boss is talking to me the way you just described it, there's nothing, personally, in my opinion, there's nothing more that I want to do to work even harder.
Exactly. It took 5 minutes, that conversation. It took her a month of possibly mulling it over, and I've been there crying and worried about the responsibility that she's shaking off and abandoning. That's in her mind. It can take 5 minutes to absolutely take her to the darkest place. And it also can take 5 minutes to change her mindset and have her take that break. And you know what? When you do that, she might come back, and that's her choice. And I say, create a box. And this is what I say to employees as well. And I learned this from Harvard, so I'm practicing it. It says, we don't create boxes. Right. We don't tell what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with, because we're scared. We're scared of speaking up. So I told her, make a box. Inside the box, what are you willing to stay on for? Wait, and be honest. Don't agree just because you want to help me. Outside the box, all the things that make you uncomfortable currently, that add to your stress. And guess what? That employee stayed and became even better.
Phenomenal.
Right?
Phenomenal. I want, in the last one, we're about to wrap it up, but I wanted to make sure I plug in your non-for-profit when it comes to animals. Could you talk about that? Just I want to make sure that's in because that's very important.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently my Chrysalis nonprofit. So Chrysalis, the animal part is actually separate.
It's a separate.
It's
I wanted to put like that in.
Yeah. So under Chrysalis, we're an umbrella network that covers all social directives. Our functionality is essentially brokering and leveraging.
Right.
And we manage a lot secured community center just from trading resources instead of funds. Now I'm adding animals also to that.
Gotcha.
Right. Gotcha. And that's a small passion of mine on the side where I'm working with, a personal friend and YouTuber. We're working towards that. We're in the initial stages. And what we want to do is utilize my TikTok and her YouTube to do live donations. Everything goes to shelter. And it's really about making that connection and to pull it back to the nonprofit. How we manage and how we want to make effect is by sharing resources.
Right.
And I think, knock on wood, and you guys can do your research, we're the first of a kind.
I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
So when, euthanizing dog, like that, to me, they need to go somewhere to get rehabilitated.
Yeah.
That's my view of that thing. And so I think what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our show. So wanted to thank you for coming on. I think there was a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to run it back and watch it. But how do people get in touch with you? How do they connect with you so they can continue, maybe reach out to you?
No, and I welcome everybody to reach out to me. I'm completely open. And so whether it's social media or I can leave my email and contact information, even if you're a leader, you're a worker, you're an employee, you're a survivor, anyone can contact me. My door is always open. And
please do, guys. She's an amazing person. I've only met her for the past month or so, and honestly, she's fantastic.
Yes.
So Wendy, Tang, Dingman, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Ciao.